A high school transgender runner was crowned the Oregon girls 200-meter state champion over the weekend. Let's watch the race. The winning time was one of the fastest in the state's history. The athlete also placed second in the 400-meter race, and some online were outraged with this result. Piers Morgan wrote an op-ed in the New York Post titled, "It's time to stop the unfair, unequal madness of trans athletes destroying women's sports." Piers wrote, quote, "Trans women deserve to be treated with respect and kindness and have the same human rights to fairness and equality that the rest of us enjoy. Preferred pronouns don't affect those rights, but what's not fine with me is when trans rights erode or destroy the rights of women to fairness and equality, as we're seeing happen more and more in women's sports." Now, responding to a post talking about the boos heard in the stadium, Megyn Kelly wrote on X, quote, "Can't imagine why he earned it. His legs are longer and more muscular. What did these slow, weak females expect?" For context, the Oregon School Activities Association's policy for transgender participation in high school sports says the OSAA endeavors to allow students to participate for the athletic or activity program of their consistently asserted gender identity while providing a fair and safe environment for all students. Rules such as this one promote harmony and fair competition. And probably a lot of people wondering if the competition is actually fair.
Piers Morgan, I appreciate him saying that trans people deserve respect and kindness. I don't think that booing a 15-year-old at a school event is reflective of respect and kindness, nor is Megyn Kelly's choice of not respecting the student's pronouns and being rather antagonistic in her tone. It's interesting that Outsport, which is a LGBTQ outlet, pointed out that the rules that the community have established for itself don't require any kind of medical transition for student athletes to compete as their desired sex, and that they personally believe that that should be a requirement. So to the extent that someone is upset with the outcome here, it really is on the community who promulgated these rules to update them so that they do create a race environment which is fair and equitable, and so that a student who wants to compete as a different sex other than the one they were assigned as birth actually is brought into conformance physically with the kind of hormonal levels and the like that the other, in this case, female students are going to have on the track, because there is a contradiction in the rules here. Yes, it should be fair and equitable, but it arguably isn't if there aren't these requirements to actually medically transition.
Right.
Now, it is worth noting also that a lot of people who would say, well, yes, that would make it more fair, are also the same camp who would say children shouldn't have access to the ability to medically transition. And so what does that mean then? Are you constructively saying that trans kids shouldn't compete at all? I think that's a difficult thing that some folks are going to have to wrestle with. Well,
or should they compete against other trans kids, perhaps other people in that same category, is something I would say. Can we accommodate by creating additional, rather than, delegitimizing your choice, but then also putting you into a competition that just is, frankly, patently unfair with just a change in gender identity? I'm looking at this.
I mean, but this person was the only trans person in this race, so that means you're not really racing, you're just running by yourself.
Well, then maybe that's how it has to be. I mean, there are certain sports where there'd be more trans people to compete against each other. Maybe over time, people are happy doing that, or if people want to establish a league that is gender non-specific for trans people to compete in, that would be fine too. But it's just you can't race. I'm looking at this time. I never ran the 200. I don't remember what are good times of the 200 as well. The 400-meter dash I did run in high school. Gallagher, the student, won this for the girls' race with a 56 seconds. This is the state championship. That's not for the men's teams. That 56 seconds in the 400 is not I was not a very good athlete, or I was certainly not a state caliber level athlete, and I had a significantly better time than that. So the difference between men and women in this race at this age even is so stark. To have someone who makes no other transition other than just changing how they identify and then enrolling in the other race is going to be it's so uncompetitive. It's unbelievable.
That argument seems to cut in the other direction for me because one, the student Gallagher, she lost in one of these races, right? She came in second in the 400
by a hair, yes.
Right, but she competed with cis women, cis girls, and lost. So this idea that is often put out there that if a trans athlete is competing, they're going to have an insurmountable and unfair advantage hasn't borne out. I mean, even in one of the most famous cases with Riley Gaines gaining a lot of kind of national notoriety over coming in behind a trans athlete, Gaines was mad about not getting a physical trophy after coming in 5th place, I believe, because there was like a tie for one of the higher slots. And so this notion that women, a cis woman, can never beat a trans woman, all of those things are undermined by the results that we see here. Yep. Gallagher won one race. She lost another race.
Well,
so your point about the men's times being so much higher than the women's times, this is a person who's transitioned, but not as far as we know medically, because it's not required in Oregon by these rules, and still is unable to dominate in the way that so many fearmongers here say that she would, of course, dominate. And she's not getting by your own estimation.
But she's running in the
meeting
state,
the men's times.
Right. What I'm saying is someone who running in the men's races would not qualify to be in the state championship at all. Is running a time that puts you like average for high school males who are competing on track in the men's category, and you can come within a hair of winning the state championship in the women's category, and all you have to do is change your identification, is what many on the right, and I'm sure many in the stands there who are booing, are reacting to as unfair.
I don't know. I think that all you have to do is doing a lot of work. And
well, in this case, you didn't have to.
No, I mean, the idea that it's normal and there's no social repercussions for representing yourself as a sex other than the one that you've lived your entire life just for like funsies, I think it's a little reductive. But as I said in the beginning, and as I think this LGBT sports outlet points out, I think it's perfectly fair to say that yes, we have sex-divided sports because there are biological differences between men and women, and if you are trans and you want to compete with the gender of your chosen identity, that you should actually have transition so that you are biologically in conformance with that. I think that's perfectly legitimate, but that is not an issue with this student. That is not a reason to boo and heckle somebody's 15-year-old child. That's a reason to go to Oregon and change the rules so that it's more fair and equitable for everybody involved.
All right, more Rising right after this.